I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 advanced tips on hiring a VA. So this week, yesterday, in fact, I spoke to 2 new VAs we've employed in our business for the first time, but we'd employed them just over a week ago. So we've got a process around hiring people, and I'm really in a proud moment in my business at the moment now that the whole hiring process happened without me. And the first point of contact with these VAs was literally yesterday after they've been onboarded and they've been in with us for a week. So I'm going to give you the 6 fundamental steps behind that, and advanced steps I'm going to call these. I'm confident enough to call them advanced because I've studied them elsewhere. I'm not taking no claim to making this stuff up, so I'm happy to call somebody else's stuff advanced stuff. But I'm Harvey, I'm a remote property investor, and if you're a property investor, you definitely want to be thinking about utilising overseas labour in the form of a virtual assistant to run your business. It always surprises me as well. I'm a remote property investor, and it surprises me massively that you still get this advice from people: only invest within an hour, but get a VA to run your business for you. And you're like, wow, they're like in the Philippines or in India or in another part of the world. And so yeah, it really surprises me when people say hire VAs, but then they say only invest locally. It's the same principle behind getting them working in your business as you working in a remote location. But that's diverting a little bit. So we'll talk about hiring a virtual system. Hiring staff is not a simple process. It takes an effort and procedures and a process. There's an effort, procedure, and a process behind hiring people, and getting good quality, talented people in your business is the most difficult thing for every single business. All different businesses face different challenges, but one universal challenge, whether you are Apple, you're Google, whether you are a little local butcher, or whether you are a solopreneur property investor or a big entrepreneur property investor, is finding the right talented people. The truth behind talented people is most of them are already doing something, you know. So especially when you're smaller and you're starting out and you're hiring your first people, attracting somebody into your business when you're a startup, when they're already either doing something themselves, is in their own business, or they're working for a company that gives them loads of benefits and you can't offer them the benefits, it's quite difficult. You can offer them other things when you're hiring people, and there is other trade-offs for working for a smaller company, like the flexibility and being involved with growing something. That does attract some people. But regardless if you're a big company, small company, whatever company you are, attracting and onboarding and finding the correct people is difficult. You've got to qualify and disqualify them. I say this for anybody you work with. It's builders, accountants, but definitely on your employees, you've got to qualify and disqualify them. And VA is the same as normal people, but you qualify and disqualify process for hiring somebody in your team, a virtual assistant or a property manager on the ground with you, or somebody's going to work with you all the time, should be a level higher. My process is more than six fundamental stages. It's quite deep, but it's beyond the scope of this video. So we're going to go through these. So number 1 is, I probably should have mentioned this at the start. I didn't stick to my rules of doing videos, but number 1 is first, before you go through the tips, you've got to always work out whether or not you want to hire them yourself or you outsource it to an agency. But even if you outsource it to an agency, you've got to qualify that agency to make sure they go through the right procedures of onboarding them and finding that right talent. So, but number 1 tip is always start with a good advert. That's your attraction point. Number 2 is the pre-interview qualifier stuff. Number 3 is the interview questions. Make sure you ask the right sort of questions. Number 4 is making sure you do a profile testing on these people, like a psychosomatic testing. Number 5 is trialing these people, and number 6 is your pre-set up for onboarding and making sure they get inducted into your company correctly. As I said, it's a real bugbear of mine, especially I hear rent-to-rent coaches say, do you know what, get a few rent-to-rents, one rent-to-rent will pay for your property manager. It's not, yes it can, but you've got to find that correct property manager, you've got to onboard them correctly, you've got to induct them correctly, you've got to make sure you keep them managed correctly. There's a whole element around hiring. It's not just easy. Everybody in business hopes that everybody who's not in business says, I want to just hire somebody for it to do it. It's just not as straightforward as that, unfortunately. Sometimes you luck out and you might hire somebody who's absolutely fantastic. It takes all the heat and pressure off of you, but 9 out of 10 times, that's just, well, not 9 out, every single time that happens, that's luck. And if that happens and you want to emulate it again and you grow your business, you won't keep on being lucky like that. So finding the right people, even when you find the right people and good people, you've got to keep them engaged and keep them on board. So these elements are really, really important. So let's go into each one of these steps in a little bit more depth. So first of all, as I said, make sure you decide like whether you want to go and find them yourself. And there's loads of platforms around there. There's even Facebook groups where you can source these virtual assistants yourself. I like the Philippines. I like their level of English, and it's great. Again, it's a great trade-off for them. You find a good talent over there because you might be able to pay them £1 an hour more. So the ones we just took on, I'm very transparent with that. They're £3 an hour. So, but for them, that's really good wage for them. Where for us, it's a really cheap wage. You know, the equivalent sort of talent in the UK would be more like £11 to £15 an hour. So the cost effectiveness of this is absolutely ginormous. I remember Rosalind, who follows some of my stuff, said, hiring in the UK, there's plenty of people who need jobs. And I said, look, you can't be sentimental when it comes to business. Yes, I would love to hire purely UK people, but one, I do find, but again, Filipinos and UK people, you find a lot of people can be entitled, but it comes with a head of a lot more of, like, for instance, one of my VAs does all my editing, and for my videos and for my thumbnails, like the cost of time that saves me is phenomenal. But if I hired a UK person in the UK to do that, I just couldn't afford it. There's not enough budget in that business to hire somebody. So you can't be sentimental. Yes, it's nice to have English. We've got a mix. I've got people working for me in the Philippines, in Colombia. I've got people working for me in the north and in the south. And yeah, if the business is strong enough, but you've got to run a business with that sentiment and run it efficiently. So you can't just say, I just want to hire UK people just for the sentiment of it, if it don't make logistical sense in your business. And yes, of course, if it makes logistical sense, hire somebody in the UK over that all day long, but make sure it makes logistical sense. And quite often, like I said, that graphic designer guy in the UK probably cost me £20 an hour, saving a phenomenal amount. Couldn't afford to hire somebody 8 hours a day in his role in my business because there's not the money there, and it means my business would be restricted from just being sentimental over it, or I'd make the business go bust. So yeah, figure out whether you want to outsource this to a company that finds them for you. This is what we just done, but we've previously done it ourselves as well. Or figure out whether or not you're going to do it yourself. If you do use an outsourced company, make sure they're doing these steps or something similar to these steps that we're telling you. The company which used called Freedom Geek, they done pretty much exactly the same pre-qualified process, and the ones they missed out, we added to that, you know. There's an extra one I am going to add into this as it happens. Let's put this on my notes so I don't forget as we get later on. There's an extra bonus one, so there's 7 here, and that is sending them your values and getting your values out your head. If you haven't done that, very, very important in your business when you're hiring staff, because everybody aligns to your values. And I'll go into that a bit more into it. So number 1 tip is starting off with a good ad. You want an ad that stands out. You don't just want a job description in your ad. You want the job description in your ad, but a little bit further down. So at the top end, you want something that stands out. Like I remember reading How to Hire Steve Jobs, and is it Nolan Busher? Nolan, I can't remember. Nolan something. He was saying in the book, they were saying, big mouse looking for big cheese, big payoffs. And he put jokes in there. So we put things in there like, when we look for admin, for instance, or email management, it might be, can you cross the T's and dot all the I's? Are you detailed processes? Do you follow a process from start to finish? Then I add some things in there about my values, you know, like are you process driven? Can you work on progress and not perfection? You add little things in from your values into there. Are you solution mind based? And then little clues as well that leads you into the next one as well. So you pad out your advert, which is a little bit catchy. Ideally a little bit of humour in there, unless you've got zero humour in your business and in your company and you want it to be really sort of professional, then put that professional look in there, but make sure they stand out from the normal just job description ones. Number 2 is the pre-interview test. So with a pre-interview test, what's advisable to do is we get them to send a voicemail to us either via WhatsApp or either on just we buy a second phone. But most times with WhatsApp, because everybody's got voice messenger, they can answer some questions. So we ask them a load of questions. So in there as well, if you said to in the description, we want somebody enthusiastic who can be a bit of a problem solver and help us grow our business, and tell them a little bit about that business, and then they got 3 questions to answer, and they go, not quite sure what the answer is to number 2. one, you hear straight away in their voice they don't sound enthusiastic, and number two, they're not a problem solver, because even if they didn't understand it, say, I'm not quite sure the answer to this, but I think it might be this, I think it might be that. So you're designing that in a way that you can qualify and dequalify a lot of people. You'll be surprised how many people apply for a job. When we do this in the UK, or when we do this on the online jobs.ph, we'll be surprised at how many people actually apply for the job, don't take the effort to take this step. But if you didn't put this step in, a lot of them would turn up for an interview. And again, you want to put lots and lots of steps in the middle of that to see their level of effort. Otherwise, they're dequalifying and deselecting themselves earlier on in the process. So when we done our job for our lettings manager on the ground in the north last time, we had about 200 applicants. And out of about 200 of them applicants, we only sent in about 90, so about half of them we offered to answer these questions via voice message, and then about half of them again deselected themselves by not sending a voice message. So yeah, if somebody ain't got the effort to make a voice message, don't care if they've got the answers right, but you can, one, deselect people by they're just not going to do it, but two, you can hear a little bit about them in their tone when you listen through these things. Then number 3 is your interview questions. So once you get them into an interview questions, well, sorry, on that selection part as well, you get them to send a voicemail, and get them to do a profile test like Genius U. It's free, it takes a little bit of time, and maybe watch a YouTube video, one of your manuals, or YouTube video of somebody else of what you want to do. Like I hired somebody on email management once, and I just found a YouTube video on email management. I hired somebody in lettings before, and one of the property hub done a podcast on the lettings, and I said to them, look, listen through this and highlight the points out what you think is good points. And when I've listened to it myself, I can see their effort and see what points they highlight that, and you get a real feel for them. If it's one of your internal manuals, you can ask them to look through that and write down bullet points of what they took from that and any feedback on that, and you can see how their mind thinks straight away. Then when you get to the interview stage, you want really good questions. You want questions that finds out about their values. You want questions in there as well that ask them about that will be challenging to see how their thought process is and how they try and answer things. I love the one Google question. I got this out of Nolan's book as well, Hiring Steve Jobs, when he says what he don't say. I think it's a Microsoft one originally, but it's why Rand manhole covers Rand. Someone went to me, not all of them are Rand. Yeah, maybe they're not all Rand, but why are the ones that are Rand? And the reason is they can't fall in themselves. Nobody really knows the answer. It's designed for people not to know the answer of that, but it's designed in a way to see if they can try and figure it out. And if they're being like the best ones that's answered me, can I Google that? And I go, yeah, absolutely perfect answer. I don't mind if you don't know the answers, but just make sure, I just want you to be a little bit solution mind based, and you can see that in a quick question like that. But ask things around their values and things like that, and have a good line of questions to make sure you drag that out of them. Then once you get to a stage where you want to, hopefully at this stage, usually half, so you go down, as you get to the interview stage at halves again, then you'll get a few people that you want to invite potentially for a test, and you want to test people, you want to test them, and not what's the name, but so you, before you do that, you do the disc or a I can't even read the word back. I just was on a call with Lisa Tingo, and she told me the company's KORLBE. I'm not sure how you say that. But you do one of these psychosomatic tests, more deeper, like Genius U, but a deeper version. I use DISC. Although it's not my favourite, it gives you enough information. It's only $15. So if you're taking 5 people to this stage, it'll save you a bit of money. But you don't want to do that deep psychosomatic test on them again. And then you want to send them your values. This is the extra one I lift off at the start, and ask them to read through it, and then send you an example. Write down an example of their favourite value and a time in a career and in their roles that they have actually experienced that. So the next one is making sure you've got the pre-setup. So you want to have it all documented out. So the day one setup, so all the logins and what you're covering on day one, going over the company structures and the vision, the manual, the vision, the mission statement, and just the induction day. So you have it sent over to them. You have day one, week 2. If you take them for a trial longer, and then month 1. So it's all lined in. So out of your head, it takes a lot for you thinking, oh, what do I task them with? You get it out. You don't always stick to it to the letter, but it takes out your head. But it also makes you look more professional. Also onboards good talent better, and stops them from being overwhelmed, and it gives you something to measure in there, because off the back of that you start building out your off your description. You want your key performance indicators in there when you hire somebody, so you can start really measuring this from day one. And then if you take on a few people, as I said, number 5 is taking people on as a trial, instead of hiring them. So say I want a 2 to 4 week trial, and extend that trial and try and take on 2, maybe 3 people. And when there's Filipinos, the wages are like anything from £1 to £5, so you can test this. And hiring people is a skill. It's something you have to do a few times and get used to it, and you probably will mess up at the front end the first few times you do it, and you'll have to iron it out a little bit and tweak it and practice it, tweak it, practice it. And as you get bigger, it's still different. As you get bigger, and there's lines of management, and there's different levels, you have to go up with hiring and keeping that all coordinated as you grow as well. But when you do your first hires, hiring somebody that's £2-3 an hour is a great place to practice, because even if you don't get it right, you just use it as a practice. You don't expect to even get it right at first time. Don't expect to hire somebody right at first time. Expect to just take the experience from it. And the money you'll spend at £2 an hour, maybe start like the 2 we've started 2 hours a day. And we're going to get them up. Ideally, both of them we want to keep, so both got opposing strengths. At the moment, so far, so good. But you don't get a full understanding of somebody in an interview, or even through these tests, until you actually try them out and see what their capabilities are. The real test comes after about 18 months, when people are not excited about the new role. Once they're settled down, once they've got more comfortable in their role, you see exactly where they perform then after about a year to 18 months. And that's when the true thing comes out. But this will not make it completely foolproof of hiring the best people first time every time. But this really eliminates loads of time, and this firmly puts the odds in your favour. And also as well, you can eliminate people really quick without an emotional response. Quite often I will just hire people just because I like them. I remember when I hired Melissa, when I hired Melissa, my marketing manager, we went through a process like this, and ultimately the second person I spoke to when I was going through these qualifiers with them, I bonded with the most on the initial call. Although the strengths that Melissa brings to me now is I bond with her really well, and the strengths she brings me. But just naturally on that first call I had with her, I liked her. I didn't dislike her. I wouldn't probably hire anybody I probably disliked, you know. Not that I dislike anybody, but I probably couldn't get along with. Really got along with her, but if somebody naturally personality-wise I bonded with more. When I took him through these processes, he fell off and she rose to the top. But if I didn't have these processes, I would have hired him, because I just initially liked him more. I think I would probably, I don't even think, I know for a fact, especially in my business as well, Melissa I'm getting along with great, and there's much more of an asset to it. But it shows you, it's a compliment to Melissa and a compliment to this system that shows you that it rises the cream to the top. And Melissa was cream, and I didn't notice that because your own confirmation biases at the front end. This guy was just more of a guy I probably could go down the pub with and have a laugh and talk about just different things, where Melissa was much more professional, much more what I needed, and I get along with Melissa great as well. There wasn't that element not there, but yeah, this process really filtered that out and got me a fantastic member of staff. And with that process there, I'd have hired the wrong person, and already through this process showed he was the wrong person before we got to the end of it. So such an important element. The last VA we went to hire as one for my email management, my team was involved with that. And we got to the end, and because you want to be thinking about doing this stuff from day one. So when you hire people, you want to make sure that all the tasks you want them to do, majority of them, not all of them, because you can outsource some of this, but is documented. So you've got processes and procedures for them to follow. You know, and if you've not done that, then it's as simple as documenting what you do as you go along. Video record what you do, turn it into documents and bullet points, because you want them first steps there in place for them. Because otherwise you hire people, you're just hoping they're going to emulate what you do, without them procedures there and without the key performance indicators, without the check-ins to make sure how they're performing. Then you really fall, you're going to fall prey to trouble in hiring people. You might hire somebody good on the first time, but if you scale up any further, you're just going to get into a whole heap of trouble, because it's just not emulate, it's not scalable, it's not repeatable to get that. Like, and if you repeat and find somebody good again, the inconsistency of it is no good for customers. Customers like consistency. That's why McDonald's do so well, that's why Costa do so well, because no matter where you get Costa in the UK, whether it's in Stockton-on-Tees, my remote investing location, or whether it's in London or Brentwood where I live, you're going to get exactly the same coffee made in the same way, because there's systems and procedures behind it. That's what made McDonald's such a big business. So if you go to these same coffee chains and the coffee's made slightly different and it tastes slightly different every time, then you won't go back there, because even if each of them make it well, people go back for the reliability and the consistent knowing of what they're going to get. In the email, if he talks about this, he says he went for an haircut, one guy done a wet shave and done this, the other guy done an equally good haircut but give him a different service, and that inconsistency, not knowing who you're going to get, how you're going to get it, puts you off from going back. So people like that familiarity, where they whether it's they're a fan of it or not, you'll get the people who are a fan and stick with you for that. So when you scale, even if you hire two good people and they're doing it inconsistently, differently to each other, it's going to cause you problems going forward with your clients and building your company. So hope you found that useful. Please share what you're doing. As I said, super excited. We've hired 2 new VAs on a trial stage. I think we might keep them both. They're doing 2 hours a week at the moment, but this whole process, there's more to this process beyond the length of this video, but at least bare minimum, take them fundamentals. I'll quickly go over them again. Values, let me touch on the values. Have your values out your head, because when in my key performance indicators each month, and we call it a growth review tracker, we make sure they align to my values. I have to score themselves, and so does the manager score them, and see how they align to that. So when somebody, I've got things like progress, not perfection. Is someone being over perfectionist or trying to get something too right? Not that in certain areas you need perfection, not perfection, but you need to be more processed with it. But we can align it back to that. Meaningful work, meaningful relationships. If someone's been a bit mean or been a bit awkward in the company, and I've got written what it means to me, I want to be able to approach people, and people approach me in my company. We feel awkward about that. It's not a match in our company, in our culture. So where you've got that written out, if somebody's starting to be awkward, you just say to them, okay, last month, would you think you was aligning to all of our values? And it drags them back on track so much quicker than it does you telling them that at the start, and then you having to pull them up on it, because you just say, oh look, this situation, do you think that align with our values? And they know your values, it's there written, and they go, where do you think that scores on that? And they can't score it. They go, yeah, and it aligns them really well, like disqualifies them and helps you move them out of your business a lot quicker. So yeah, that's the values one. Hope you found it useful. All of these, going back over them again, is obviously having your good advert out there, having your pre-qualifier, having your good interview questions that lead in the right direction, having the pre-qualifying tests of like doing psychosomatic light ones, do a more in-depth one when you're getting through to the next stage. Make sure you go on a trial and you've set that up on their week 1, day 1 stuff, and always have them on a trial basis at the start until you see how they perform, and definitely send them over your values to give you the feedback on them values. So hope you found that useful. Please share any experiences with a VA. If you're going to go into business at one point or another, you definitely want to hire a VA, especially like, even if it's your email, you've got to look at the tasks that are worth your time. I enjoy Canva stuff, but it's not worth my time. I'd spend an hour doing what my VA does for a few pound an hour, what my VA does, and that money for them is good, by the way, so we're not exploiting them, but what he does in an hour will take me an hour, and it's not worth my time. As much as I enjoy that, and I could find myself doing that stuff anyway. So again, this way you want to track what you do, find the bits that are income generating tasks in your business, make sure you're mainly doing them, and outsource the other bits like the admin and all that sort of stuff to the VAs, and find the people that's going to enjoy that side of things. So as I said, hope you found that useful. If you don't evolve your ideas and think about doing stuff like this, you're never going to live on your own terms. So evolve your ideas, live on your own terms, and have a fantastic day, everyone.